probably one of the most relaxed match reviews that you can do. First of all, this gives away how I record the videos. But secondly, 5-0 against Stoke at the AXA behind a closed door, because closed door games just feel more relaxed. In fact, this game felt so relaxed that most of the time the players looked as if they were walking, just trying to find unusual shapes. And guess what? They kind of did. Let's talk about some of those brilliant highlights that talk about. You can go watch them, by the way, on the All Red website, and also they're floating all over Twitter right now. But there are a lot of people getting very excited about a number of different positions that these players are taking up. The fact that, frankly, the shape does not look anything like it did last season. And we've not even slotted in Hugo Ekitike yet. We've not even slotted in everyone else that we're looking at signing. And we are slotting in Wirtz, Kirkes, and of course, Frimpong. It feels good, but let's face it, guys. Walking pace games, especially if we're going to be playing them against Preston, and Preston was a very key turning point for us, but let's face it, wasn't exactly at full tilt. And of course, then against Stoke City, they're not games to judge players' long-term career prospects on, but they certainly are games where you can say, how are the squad feeling? How are we feeling about this player, their development, where they're going to bed in, and then of course what are we doing in preparation for the flight to Japan, which I've seen the picture, feel like Liverpool are already on that flight. First of all, Darwin Núñez. It's a pretty fascinating arc that we're going to go through this summer, I think, with Darwin. I, for a very long time, wasn't, and still don't particularly feel crazy about Darwin Núñez as a lead striker, as a starting striker for Liverpool. He's a great player, don't get me wrong. There's a natural finisher in there. There's someone who's very impassioned and committed and feels personal about all this stuff. And that's obviously what I want in a side. But I saw also some aspects to his game and maybe the kind of player profile that I didn't particularly appreciate, should we say, towards the end of last season. I didn't like the way that it felt as if the relationship between him and the club were ending, and that felt very evident on the field, and it felt very frustrating, I think, at times, that when we really needed him to step up, especially against teams like Aston Villa at the title run-in time, he wasn't able to. And actually, we ended up feeling quite neutral, shall we say, about his contribution. That's not the same in pre-season, but of course, pre-season is very different to actual competitive games, and pressure can very often change players. Hat-trick in this game. None of them particularly crazy goals. The first one manipulated by Wirtz, by the way, in the number 10 position, pretty much through the middle of the field. We'll talk more about Wirtz in a second. The second one, again, kind of not a rebound, but just basically him finishing off a ball that was through and came from the side, and nice little finish. But again, pretty simple, straightforward one for a striker. And then the third one really was just, again, another, you'd expect a striker to take it, but still a hat-trick in the first 20 minutes of a game, and sometimes the ball falls to you in that time. I think what's great is, and the main argument you can make for keeping Darwin Núñez actually wouldn't be the argument about him as a player, even though we do feel different about him with shaved head, we do feel different about him, just with the seasonal change. It's the players around him, the position he's going to play, the place he'll end up. There are a lot of people right now thinking about a 3-3-1 or a 3-2-2-3, and him being the middle of those three, and the hookup play and all this kind of thing. And as we bring in Wirtz and Szoboszlai and all these different people, even Curtis Jones, I think, was a fascinating person to talk about in this game, you will probably see that if you put a striker in those positions, they'll put the ball in the back of the net. But for me, that's not just Darwin, but still good things to take from him in this one. Next up, let's talk about Rio Ungamo's. It's not a great goal, but again, it's a deflected goal. Probably, again, if you're telling this game from a Stoke perspective, you're saying, oh, really unfortunate to concede this goal, that the ball fell to him, that this went there. So I'm not going to go crazy about it. But again, lovely to see Wirtz putting that ball through. Lovely to see the casual nature of how he just puts out these incredible round the corner efforts. And you see the same from Salah. We'll talk about that again in a second. In fact, no, let's talk about that now. Salah is very good at... First of all, he's a very empathetic player. He's a player that picks up a lot of other people's trends. He's a player that really enjoys the training and the bonding and the learning of the game together, where the ball's going to go, how the system's going to work, how we're going to unpick the opposition, and the satisfaction in that. And what I mean by that is, Salah's always had a great ball on him. He's always had a great vision. He's always had all these brilliant things that make the best players the best. But every now and again, when a new player comes into the club, you see Salah really feed off that energy. You see him really double down on the brilliance of what that other player can do and learn from them in training, or at least harness some of that vision that they seem to have. And I really love that. And that ball out to Curtis out wide before the second Darwin goal, I think it was lovely. And this like marauding right back that Liverpool are currently cultivating, and the same on the left, is going to be a big feature of our game. It's going to be a big feature of a lot of people's game this season, but it makes me feel so good when I look at Szoboszlai, Curtis Jones, Bradley, Frimpong, and that's just on the right-hand side of this team. And when you think about this player who floats between the half space, or that kind of, that little gap, and the wide, and then back inside, we have great players for all those profiles. Not only do we have great players for a lot of different formations, but we have great players specifically for that profile. And so that makes me feel good. And players like Ngamoa, players who can drop a shoulder, get past a guy, whatever you want to call it, are going to thrive on that kind of system. How much game time he'll get, even though he's clearly beefed up, even though he's clearly gunning more for goal now, I don't know. But this is a great experience, and clearly Liverpool rate him extremely highly in order to get to that spot. And then finally, obviously, the Chiesa goal, the one that came in the second half, very selfless by Gakpo. And again, kind of at walking pace at this point. Stoke were really being moved all over the place and couldn't deal with Liverpool's ball movement or moments of injections of pace. And I get the feeling that you're going to get jerked all over the shop next season when you play Liverpool. It's going to be you're going to get whiplash, essentially, from playing in games against Liverpool, because 1 second you're on the front foot, the next second you're on the back foot, and Frimpong is putting you on that back foot. He's just marauding. He looks so much quicker than anyone else out there on the field. Even Liverpool's fastest players, he looks quicker than. And that's saying something, right? But he just tears away from anyone else. There's instant separation. It's like watching kind of one of those drag races where you see a car start and you're like, oh, okay, maybe this Porsche is the same speed as that. And suddenly they are just 50 feet ahead of the other car over the line. And there is so much space and time to be able to look up and pick a ball out. And it's so satisfying to watch. And then, of course, Gakpo seems to be, again, one of those empathetic, brilliant pin in the side players. Put him in the squad and he will thrive types. And I love watching him. He was great last season at the start of the season when I went to see him away from home at AC Milan. He was fantastic on that night. He was the constant outlet for us. He was always in the right place. He was always putting pressure on the opposition. And I think if you put Ekitike in this team just ahead of him, he's only going to thrive more. He's only going to get better in those positions. He's only going to improve in his own space that he gets and his own movement, all that stuff that you can list for these brilliant players. So yeah, that's good. I'm not going to draw much attention to that back line because it didn't feel as if it was ever particularly challenged. I know Mamardashvili played a significant amount of minutes, but Alisson's looking good. He's going away on this pre-season tour, and basically we have two of the best goalkeepers in the world now as our starting 1 and 2. There will be competition between them. There will be chat about that competition. I think if anyone's going to pick holes in this squad, it's going to be through, are there too many positives to this Liverpool team? Are they too strong? And that also, I'll be honest, that feels pretty good. At the same time, I don't think Alisson or Mamardashvili feel like the type of guy to back down from a challenge or like the type of guy to self-combust in those kind of situations. And Alisson has been our number 1 and rightly been our number 1 for years now and will remain so, I'd imagine, into the new season. Despite Mamardashvili looking really good, eviscerating those rumours about him being poor with his feet, and showing all the qualities through the coaching that he's had and through the support that he has from the centre-backs either side and then the immediate midfielders ahead of him to be the guy to be able to pick out that pass. And that, my friends, is satisfying. Now on some of the youth, right? And on some of the hookup. First of all, we're talking about Frimpong. Can we talk about Bradley? Can we talk about Jones? Can we talk about all the people who down that right-hand side are just going to thrive in this slot system and the 3-2-2-3, the 3-box-3 essentially that we're playing there. But it's always what it is. Last season we had Trent drifting in field into that 6. And then he started to drift in and sort of play in that 10, and no one really noticed. Oh, some people noticed it, but no one really acknowledged it in the kind of the way that we were using it very often in a lot of these games as like a creative outlet. And it was mainly because Trent has just wandered for a very long time and kind of been one of those guys, and you can never really work out where he was going to go during the game. We thought he had this license and it was him more than it was Slot and all these kind of things. But now what we're seeing is when other players are allowed that kind of time and creativity and space and options, they can also do a lot of great things. I'm not saying they can put an incredible ball on a plate through the middle, but what they can do is facilitate. And seeing Szoboszlai play in that is basically a false nine type role for us alongside the real number 9 really gives me a lot of hope. It makes me feel passionately that Liverpool are in a great position moving into this new season, and that the shapes that we're taking up, the positions we're taking up, really are going to serve us very well. So that like inside marauding right back that goes to be a winger, that is so many different people's positions. Again, that whiplash type of idea that we've got, I think that works in this. All right. Next up, Trainioni. Some people calling him a regen of Thiago. I think Thiago is one of the greatest midfielders of all time, and clearly one of the most confident and technically proficient midfielders probably that we've ever had, despite the lack of trophies in the time that he was at the club. Nioni, I mean, you know, he's clearly a midfielder that loves to play at base midfield and dictate things. I think in my experience, he's growing into the role. He's growing into finding quality players, and I think that's kind of the case when we're talking about any of these guys coming into the team. And Gamoa, he's being found by real quality. Same with Nioni, he's being supported by real quality, and he's just given the time and the space and the runs to be able to pick out those elite passes. I still think that the real gap between the first team, frankly, and this kind of youth/second string is really just physicality, is really just physical ability. First of all, to play 90 minutes, but second of all, to be able to deal with the stresses of the game, the whiplash that we need to inflict on the opposition. It's very easy to do that in these preseason games where, frankly, the opposition are just walking around. But what I enjoy is to watch them grow into that space and find their feet and the momentum. We kind of did this a little bit last season in preseason. It wasn't as if we went crazy, but like we very often build up a lot of momentum when it comes to games and when it comes to the season last year. A lot of people are talking about, well, Liverpool have been allowed to. Yeah, we were allowed to grow into the season last season because no one else was really challenging in that way. But a good preseason that sets you on the right foot, that gives you all the right shapes, that gives you all those great moments, and just gives you confidence to try to execute the brilliance when you then get into the games. That is what we're looking at with this Liverpool team right now. And, I know that there's probably going to be a game where we get surprised, or there's like a bit of an FA Cup style upset, either early on in the season or in this preseason when we test a couple of things and Stevenson's playing our position, whatever. Liverpool are already trying new things. And they're already clearly effective tactics, which aren't just like, hey, maybe we should move that guy there. It's like, no, look at where these Liverpool players are and look at what Slot is training them to do now. What he's doing, and again, we can probably go back to this very Dutch idea of total football, but I feel like that's a little bit reductionist to what it is. But players able to play in multiple positions during a game and interchange and understand the flow of the game, therefore just taking the opposition out when they need to be able to basically decode what the opposition are doing, but also to keep shape-shifting, to keep being difficult to work out and decipher. And where's that guy now? Where is Frimpong? Is he back? Is he forward? Where is Wirtz? Is he in the middle? Is he out on the left? And that's kind of the final piece here. We went for Kerkez, Wirtz. We've gone for Ekitike, gone for Frimpong. Kerkez and Frimpong feel a bit more obvious, but the Wirtz one was kind of interesting to everyone because we were like, is he going to play on the left? Is he going to play through the middle? And he was clearly sold on the project. He was clearly sold on the idea of playing at Liverpool and the freedom he was going to get. And to an extent, you can understand why he want to play in some of these more fixed formations and ideas at Bayern or at Man City. And I get it, like there is incredible institutes. But if you are sold on, hey, you're going to spend a couple of years here and you are going to be given the latitude to be able to go out there and play the ball you want to play and do the things you want to do, that's a big sell. I know we're talking about the size of Liverpool as a club. I think that's something that maybe becomes evident as the players move in. And I know sometimes they got the self-awareness. I think what it is they really are walking through the door at Liverpool, speaking to Michael Edwards or speaking to Richard Hughes, speaking to Slot, hearing from the players about the happiness and the job satisfaction, frankly, that I think a lot of these players are feeling. And then they're seeing that in trophy parades, in celebrations, when they go to Anfield, and they go, it's the overall package that we're selling them on. It's not just like, hey, the finances are good. Does this work for you? And of course the finance is good. Of course there's bits of that work for them. They're professional footballers. But if you're looking on the holistic side of what Liverpool are building and have built here, and the years of, not necessarily outstripping anyone else in spending, maximizing the players we have there, laying a foundation of a culture that develop characters as well as technically proficient, modern, empathetic, smart, emotionally intelligent players. That's the foundation of what Klopp was. It's the foundation of what maximized all the stats that came into the club. And it seems again as if we found another manager who's very good at that. I think Ruben Amorim kind of strikes me as another one of those guys, but that requires not a certain level of intelligence from everyone else around him, but a certain level of openness to changing into that style. And Liverpool have never been afraid to embrace peripheral ideas or embrace progress. And the only times that we haven't really embraced that progress, or we were in denial, or that kind of, what's it called, cognitive dissonance of where we were at, was in the 90s. And that was where it fell off. And the second that we dropped it, we started rebuilding. The second that we pushed through that cognitive dissonance of, no, if we do it the old way, then it'll still work. No, the Premier League's out of step. We're the ones that know. We were in denial during the 90s, and I remember this, and I don't remember it as a kid because I remember at the time kind of actively understanding that the Liverpool era was over and the Manchester United one had begun, but I didn't know why our era was over. And then in retrospect, it was that we weren't upgrading as a club. We weren't changing with the times. We weren't understanding what the game was now. Do you know what I mean? And that, I think that now really sticks with me, because the culture that we have now feels the opposite of that, feels the antithesis of regressive. And I look at some other clubs, and maybe this is how people view each other sometimes, and you can be very judgmental of other people's systems and ideas when you're busy, reaping the rewards of some of the work that other people have done. But you can see that other people are trying to, or know what they're trying to build, and they're trying to build something in this kind of FSG Liverpool stats model, and it works. It is effective. It is good. So yeah, brilliance from a lot of these Liverpool players. We've not even started on the pre-season realistically. We've not even mentioned Salah. We've not even mentioned some of those centre-backs. We've not mentioned, how good Szoboszlai and Wirtz look as a pressing pair. And it's really promising. It's really exciting. Let me know what you guys enjoyed most about the pre-season. Of course, I'll be talking more about this as they move into the next set of games, the next set of match days and those kind of things in the pre-season. So there's a lovely plane going over the top of me right now. And I appreciate you guys watching. Maybe that's the Japan plane. No, it's going the wrong way. I appreciate you guys watching and enjoying the content. I hope you are. In the coming days, who knows where we'll go with transfers, but I'm just really enjoying the team we have. And the reason some of these transfers are so rewarding and exciting right now is frankly because it's like, well, we're adding to this. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, appreciate you guys watching. Get in the Discord, get in the Patreon, and of course, there's Super Chat down there if you want to support the work that we do, equally to the Patreon. I will chat to you guys in a little while, and I appreciate you. Much love.